What if the most powerful thing you could ever do was absolutely nothing? Not out of laziness, not out of fear, but as a deliberate, conscious act of supreme wisdom. That idea right there is going to challenge everything you think you know about strength, success, and what it actually means to win at life. And I promise you, by the time we reach the end of this video, you will never look at surrender the same way again. But first, subscribe to our channel. Today, we are cracking open one of the most misunderstood teachings in all of human history. We are talking about Lao Tzu, a philosopher who lived roughly 2,500 years ago in ancient China. A man who wrote a tiny book called the Tao Te Ching, barely 5,000 Chinese characters long, and somehow managed to pack more wisdom into those few pages than most people absorb in an entire lifetime of reading. And the central, most paradoxical, most brain-bending idea at the heart of his teaching? That real strength looks like weakness. That true power comes through letting go. That the path to genuine victory runs directly through surrender. Now, before you click away, before your instincts kick in and tell you this sounds like the advice someone gives when they have already given up, stay with me. Because what Lao Tzu was talking about is not weakness disguised as philosophy. It is something far more sophisticated, far more strategic, and honestly far more radical than anything our modern culture of hustle and domination has ever offered us. Let us start where most people start when they first encounter these ideas, which is with complete skepticism. We live in a world that rewards aggression. We celebrate the loudest voice in the room. We promote the person who outworks, outmaneuvers, and outlasts everyone else. From the time we are children, the message is consistent and relentless. Fight harder. Push further. Never give an inch. Never show weakness. Winning is the only thing that matters. So when Lao Tzu comes along and says, essentially, stop fighting so hard, the immediate reaction is dismissal. That sounds like a recipe for getting trampled. But here is what is fascinating. The people who actually live by these principles, the ones who genuinely understand what Lao Tzu was pointing toward, are not getting trampled at all. They are quietly, consistently, and almost effortlessly achieving things that the hard fighters are breaking themselves trying to reach. So what exactly was Lao Tzu saying? Let us get into the actual substance of the teaching, because this is where things get genuinely interesting. The concept at the core of Lao Tzu's philosophy is the Tao, which translates roughly as the way. Not a road you walk on, not a method or technique, but something closer to the fundamental nature of reality itself, the underlying current that runs through all things. The Tao is not something you force. It is something you align with. And when you stop fighting against it, when you stop insisting that reality conform to your personal preferences and expectations, something remarkable happens. Life starts working with you instead of against you. Lao Tzu had a specific term for the practice of aligning with the Tao, and that term is Wu Wei. People often translate this as non-action or doing nothing, but that translation is almost criminally misleading. Wu Wei does not mean paralysis. It does not mean passive resignation. It means effortless action. It means acting in such perfect harmony with the natural flow of things that your actions require no strain, no force, no desperate grasping. It is the difference between swimming upstream and swimming downstream. You are still swimming, but the effort required is completely different. Think about the best athletes you have ever watched perform. The ones operating at an elite level do not look like they are straining. A great tennis player does not look like they are fighting the ball. A great dancer does not look like they are fighting the music. There is a fluidity, an ease, a sense that they have stopped resisting and started flowing. That right there is Wu Wei in action. That is Lao Tzu's teaching made visible. Now here is where the surrender piece comes in, and this is the part that tends to genuinely rattle people. Lao Tzu taught that one of the greatest obstacles between us and the life we want is our ego. Not ego in the pop psychology sense of someone being arrogant, but ego in the deeper sense of this rigid, defended sense of self that we protect at all costs. This is the part of us that must be right, must be seen, must be acknowledged, must win every interaction and every argument. And while that protective mechanism has its place, Lao Tzu observed that it costs us enormously. When you are too attached to being right, you cannot hear truth. When you are too committed to your plan, you cannot adapt when circumstances change. When you are too focused on what you think you want, you miss what you actually need. The ego, for all its protective instincts, becomes a cage. And surrender, in Lao Tzu's framework, is not defeat. It is the act of opening that cage. It is choosing something larger than your own small story. Let us make this concrete, because philosophical ideas only matter if they land in real life. Think about a situation where you were in conflict with someone you care about. A family member, a close friend, a partner. The argument got heated. Both of you dug in. Both of you were absolutely convinced that you were right and the other person was wrong. Maybe you won that argument technically. Maybe they backed down. Maybe they admitted defeat. Maybe you proved your point beyond any reasonable doubt. But what happened to the relationship afterward? Was the air clear? Did you feel closer? Or did something quietly fracture? Did they pull back slightly, trust you a little less, feel a little more guarded around you? Winning the argument meant losing something more valuable, and that is exactly what Lao Tzu was pointing at. The victory you can see is sometimes the most expensive thing you will ever buy. The alternative he proposed was not becoming a pushover. It was not pretending to agree when you do not. It was something subtler and far more powerful, which was releasing your need for the other person to acknowledge that you are right. It was holding your perspective lightly enough that the relationship could breathe. It was recognizing that the person in front of you matters more than the point you are trying to make. That is surrender as strength. That is losing to win at a deeper level. Lao Tzu was endlessly fascinated by water. He returned to water as a metaphor over and over in the Tao Te Ching, and it is worth spending a moment understanding why. Water is soft. Water yields. You can split water with your hand, and it flows right back together. Water does not resist. Water does not argue. Water does not insist on going a particular direction. It simply finds the lowest point, the easiest path, and it moves there. And over time, water carves canyons. Water shapes mountains. Water is patient and persistent in a way that feels almost indifferent, and nothing can ultimately stand against it. The stone in the riverbed thinks it is strong because it is hard and unyielding. But it is the water that sculpts everything. Hardness and rigidity, Lao Tzu said, are associated with death. Softness and flexibility are associated with life. Look at a living tree and a dead one. The living tree bends in the wind. The dead tree snaps. This is not poetic decoration. This is Lao Tzu offering a genuine operating principle for life. The people who survive and thrive over the long term are rarely the most aggressive, the most rigid, the most forceful. They are the ones who can adapt, who can let go of what is not working, who can yield without breaking. Flexibility is a form of power that our culture almost completely ignores. Now let us talk about something that hits even closer to home, which is how we handle failure. Because here is where Lao Tzu's teaching becomes almost uncomfortable in its relevance. We are conditioned to view failure as something to be hidden, overcome, and left behind as quickly as possible. We manage our images carefully. We curate what we share. We present the wins and quietly bury the losses. But Lao Tzu would argue that this relationship with failure is itself a form of suffering. When you cannot be with failure, you cannot learn from it. When you are too busy protecting your image, you cannot receive the feedback reality is trying to offer you. The person who genuinely surrenders to their failures, who looks at them clearly without flinching, without excuse-making, without self-flagellation either, that person develops at a speed that is almost incomprehensible to someone who is spending half their energy defending against the truth. There is a concept in Taoist thought that is related to this, which is the idea of emptiness. Lao Tzu used the image of a bowl. A bowl is useful precisely because of its emptiness. A room is useful because of the empty space in it. A wheel works because of the empty space at its hub. We tend to focus on what is there, the clay, the walls, the spokes. But the usefulness comes from what is not there. When you are completely full of your own opinions, your own certainties, your own fixed ideas about who you are and how things should work, there is no room for anything new to enter. Surrender, in this sense, is the act of emptying yourself enough to receive. It is intellectual and emotional humility as a practical strategy. This brings us to something that I think is one of the most quietly radical parts of Lao Tzu's teaching, which is his perspective on control. We are absolutely obsessed with control. Control over our circumstances, our relationships, our futures, our images, our environments. The self-help industry is largely built on the promise of more control. More optimization, more systems, more strategies to bend life to your will. Lao Tzu looked at this obsession and essentially said, "You are exhausting yourself and achieving the opposite of what you want. The tighter you grip, the more life slips between your fingers. The more you try to control an outcome, the more resistance you create. The more you insist a relationship look a certain way, the more strained and artificial it becomes. Control is another form of fighting, and fighting the Tao is a losing strategy by definition. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because rigidity and force simply do not work with systems that are inherently fluid and dynamic. The surrender Lao Tzu points toward is not giving up your desire for good outcomes. It is releasing your attachment to how exactly those outcomes must arrive. There is a profound difference between those two things. You can hold a vision, work towards something meaningful, put in genuine effort, and still hold the whole thing lightly enough that when the universe offers you something slightly different from what you planned, you can see it clearly and respond wisely. Some of history's most remarkable achievements have happened precisely in this space between intention and surrender. The scientist who has a hypothesis but remains genuinely open to what the data reveals. The entrepreneur who has a plan but pivots brilliantly when the market shows them something unexpected. The artist who begins with an idea but follows the work wherever it leads. In each case, there is direction without rigidity, intention without control, effort without force. Let me bring this all the way back to something personal and immediate, because this is not just ancient philosophy. This is something you can actually use before this video even ends. Think about something in your life right now that you have been fighting with. Maybe it is a situation you cannot control. Maybe it is a relationship that is not going the way you want. Maybe it is a version of yourself you are trying to force into being through sheer willpower, and it keeps not working. And you keep pushing harder, and it keeps not working. What would happen if you applied even a fraction of Lao Tzu's teaching to that situation? What if you released, just slightly, your grip on how it has to look? What if you asked yourself honestly whether your strategy is working, and if the answer is no, whether fighting harder is actually the answer? What would it look like to move like water around this particular obstacle rather than trying to smash through it? This is the genuine strength in surrender. Not weakness, not giving up, not passive acceptance of things that genuinely need to change, but a sophisticated, deeply intelligent willingness to stop spending your energy on what you cannot control and redirect that energy toward what you can influence. It is a willingness to trust, even a little, that the Tao, that underlying current of reality, might have something better in mind than your current plan. That the ending you are forcing might be preventing the beginning you actually need. Lao Tzu spent his life watching how nature worked and noticing that it never forced anything. The seasons do not strain to change. Seeds do not fight their way into trees through willpower. The sun does not try to rise. Everything happens in its right time, through its natural process, without anxiety or grasping. He looked at human beings and saw creatures who had somehow lost access to this natural intelligence, who had replaced it with calculation and force and the desperate need to win every moment. And he wrote the Tao Te Ching as a kind of gentle, insistent invitation to come back. The next time life presents you with a moment where winning would cost you too much, where holding on is clearly holding you back, where the harder you push the worse things get, remember this. Lao Tzu saw you coming 2,500 years ago. He understood exactly what you were dealing with. And his answer, offered with a quiet smile, was this: stop, breathe, flow. The strongest thing you might ever do today could be the thing you finally choose to let go. If this landed for you, if something in here shifted a perspective or cracked something open, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to know how you are applying these ideas, or where you are still wrestling with them. That conversation is worth having. And if you want to keep going deeper into this kind of thinking, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next one.